if you want to talk. Latter-day Saint, do you want to talk? You have to unmute. LDS Christian, unmute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hi. So yeah, you are debating Mormons tonight.
Sure.
So Chad Wilson, throw out a shout out to you for letting me know when Jay's on.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm LDS. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints because I find the early Christian church fathers teach LDS doctrine more than they teach Orthodox or Catholic doctrines, especially when we look at before Nicaea and the change in infant baptism. I don't see infant baptism taught before really about 200 AD, and of course the Trinity is definitely a part of the apostasy. So yeah, that's
Okay.
why.
Who do you think started teaching the Trinity?
Who do I think started teaching the Trinity? Constantine, the Gnostics. That's where Homoousius comes from.
Wait, Constantine the Gnostics. Constantine is an emperor. He has nothing to do with Gnostics.
Right, but it came from Greek philosophy. When you
so you said Constantine.
When you follow the history of Homoousius, it comes through Gnosticism.
Right, that's a genetic
fallacy.
It's a genetic fallacy. The fact that somebody uses a term does not equate to the meaning of that system using that term.
Sure, but when you look at the idea within Christianity, Homoousius was condemned and anathematized in the 260s to condemn Paul of Samosata.
Yeah, but the term is not the problem. It's the meaning of the term, so it really doesn't matter. But
well, it's the term and the meaning of the term.
No, it's not. There's nothing wrong.
The
Terms,
meaning doesn't change.
Of course it does. This is the
This
is the word concept fallacy. And by the way, how could the Trinity come there when Tertullian has a gigantic book in about 180 on the Trinity?
Yeah, Tertullian did not teach the Trinity. I do a 10-hour, nearly a 20-hour series on my channel on YouTube, debunking the idea that Tertullian taught the Trinity. He taught that the Son was formed when God said, "Let there be light." He was given his own form, his own voice, his own garb, and he said that when God said, "Let there be light," he said that's the perfect nativity of the Son, nativity, the birth. When God said, "Let there be light," Jesus is known as the light.
We've already done a response to all this. I'm not going to go through 10 hours of your citing of it. So what are you laughing at?
So what?
Are you laughing?
I didn't laugh.
Okay. I thought you were laughing. So we've done a response to this that was about a 2-hour talk on Inspiring Philosophy's channel, which deals with this Muslim line of argumentation that these early church fathers. Now, if you're saying that the Trinity was from Constantine and the Gnostics, and I'm saying that, well, the doctrine of the Holy Trinity is the very first thing mentioned in against Praxeas. Even if you take issue with some of the formulations of the way that he talks about the Son, he does not say the Son is a creature. So he's still teaching, quote, the doctrine of the Trinity. That's the very beginning of the treatise. So it's not from Constantine. Right. So it's not from Constantine.
So actually the Tertullian actually teaches it very similar to the way we do.
No, it doesn't.
In the sense that Joseph Smith taught that intelligences are not created. We are uncreated. And Tertullian taught that...
well, hold on. We're uncreated? How many gods are there?
Intelligences are not gods.
If they're uncreated, they're gods.
No, matter is uncreated. It does not mean that matter is a god.
So that's right. That's Aristotle's doctrine. If matter is uncreated, how is it not divine?
Justin Martyr taught that matter was not created.
No, he doesn't teach that. No, he does not. He teaches
Yes,
creation.
he
No, he doesn't. He teaches creation ex nihilo.
He does not teach ex nihilo.
Yes, he does. And you're citing a section where he taught. Most of the time when people argue this, I don't know if you're arguing this, but most of the time they're citing a section where he's telling you what the Gnostic doctrines are. He does believe in creation.
No,
yes,
he does not teach Gnostic doctrines in First Apology.
No, did you hear what I said? When Mormons and other people try to prove from Irenaeus that he does not teach ex nihilo, they cite a section where he's describing Gnostic teachings denying ex nihilo. You can't understand what I'm saying?
I did not say Irenaeus. I said Justin Martyr.
Okay, I'm talking about Irenaeus. So my mistake.
I'm talking about Justin Martyr. Justin Martyr taught ex materia.
Well, even if he did, it doesn't mean that it's true. But what?
It shows that the earlier we go, we see LDS doctrines.
No, we don't.
Orthodox.
No, we
doctrines.
don't. Because he does not. He does not teach Mormon doctrine. You can watch the response that Sam Shamoon did after we did our response to the Muslims raising the same question. They're not teaching your doctrine. And by the way, it wouldn't matter even if one church father made that mistake, because we don't follow one single church father. The New Testament doesn't teach that there's prima materia or that there's eternal matter. The book of Maccabees teaches that God created everything out of nothing.
Yeah, well, we don't follow the book of Maccabees.
Yeah, but see, well, how do you know what the canon is? How do you know what the scriptures are?
Because we have living apostles who tell us what they are.
So how do you know they're living apostles?
Because they have the authority.
Okay, where did they get that? What's the criteria?
Peter, James, and John.
Where did they get that authority? What's the criteria?
The criteria is to be given it to you from those who hold that authority.
So every cult claims that
Peter,
they have
James,
authority.
And John came to Joseph Smith and gave him and.
How do you know? Now hold on. How do you know
authority.
that Peter, James, and John came to Joseph Smith and he's not just a fraud?
Because we have witnesses and evidence that show that he was a prophet. The Book of Mormon.
The Book of Mormon proves. So the Book of Mormon proves that he's. So his own claims to be a prophet is what proves he's a prophet.
I'm sorry.
His own claims to be a prophet is what proves he's a prophet, according to you.
Not just his own claims, the claims of other witnesses that were there.
Okay, so any cult, if they have people claiming to be witnesses, that means that it's true? How do you know that they're not lying?
Because the consistency within history.
I don't even know what that means. I mean, what do you say to a Muslim who says that the early followers of Muhammad are consistent with the Quran, therefore Islam is true?
Well, I'm talking about the early Christian history after the apostles died.
No, it's the argument is a fallacious argument, is what I'm trying to explain.
So what I'm saying is that everything is evidence for the prophet, because we have consistent evidence through history, through the Bible.
That's a circle.
No, it's not.
Well, the Bible doesn't teach your view. In fact, in the Joseph Smith translation, he added himself to the last chapter of Genesis, correct?
When you look at the Jews actually believed in a Messiah ben Joseph that was supposed to descend from.
No. That's not what I said. Yeah. No, that's a rabbinic Talmudic tradition that has nothing to do with the Bible. That's nowhere in the Bible.
Joseph Smith.
No.
Joseph Smith added that rabbinic tradition back into the Bible.
Exactly. So he's a fraud. So he retroactively added himself to the Bible.
He
Exactly.
He
So he's a fraud. Exactly.
Messiah ben Joseph.
So he adds himself to the text. So your argument was that he's a true prophet because he's predicted, and you're admitting that he added himself to the text. That's a fraud.
He was predicted by the rabbinic text.
How in anybody's mind would you think that Messiah ben Joseph from the Talmud has anything to do with Joseph Smith? Is Joseph Smith Jewish?
No. In fact, it says that he's not supposed to be Jewish. It says that he comes from the tribe.
How
of
would the
Ephraim.
Jews accept Messiah ben Joseph if he's a Gentile?
Because the Ephraimites became they were.
So you think that was in the minds of the Talmudic writers, that they were talking about the shit that is in the Book of Mormon? This made up nonsense about Ephraimites?
Joseph is supposed to precede the Messiah ben David's second coming. He's supposed to be a restorer. He's supposed to restore the temple. He's supposed to.
And you think that the rabbinic Jews in the Talmud who don't believe in anything to do with Christianity or the Bible or Jesus were predicting Joseph Smith a Gentile?
Yes, because when you go, you can actually go look. You can go look at the Jewish Encyclopedia under Messiah. Everybody look this up. Go to the Messiah Jewish Encyclopedia entry and scroll all the way down to the bottom, and you will read about Messiah ben Joseph. And Joseph Smith filled those prophecies about Messiah ben Joseph.
Why would he fulfill those prophecies as a Gentile and then add himself to the book of Genesis? This is so stupid.
Because he was it already talked about that in the book of Genesis, and it was removed.
How do you know it was removed? How do you know it was removed?
Because it doesn't exist anymore.
So
they still have the prophecies.
You don't see this how dumb this circle is? So we only know that it's removed because he says it's removed, so he adds it, and that's the proof that he's the prophet. That's a circle.
Because we have the evidence in the Jewish Encyclopedia.
What does that have to do with Joseph Smith?
There's
no Jew, there's no Talmudic Jew that would accept a Gentile Messiah ben Joseph. That's crazy.
Because we are not just Gentiles. We are of the tribes of Israel.
No, you're not. That's all made up.
Tribes of Israel.
There's no evidence that you are not the tribe. No, you're not. How are you that when what's your lineage? You're Jewish now?
I am of the tribe of Ephraim.
No. Mormons think that you're of these tribes, but you're like the Black Hebrew Israelites who claim that you're that when you're nothing to do with that.
So we have the evidence that...
You have no evidence. What's your evidence?
We have the evidence that confirms itself.
What? You have the evidence that confirms itself. So that's a circle.
The evidence is consistent because when we have...
In Jewish eschatology, Messiah ben Yosef or Mashiach ben Yosef is a Jewish Messiah.
Not necessarily.
No, that's the rabbinic tradition.
It's the rabbinic tradition, but it doesn't.
Which has nothing to do with you. You're not Jewish or rabbinic. You have nothing to do with that. You have no connection to that.
Doesn't mean that everything that they interpret has to be interpreted that way.
So again, this is why the religion is fraudulent, because you remove the context. You remove the context and make it about something that is nowhere in their mind. That's why it's fraudulent. It's also fraudulent
They did not interpret the Messiah ben David properly in the very beginning anyway. That's why they missed their Messiah.
Oh, so that would discount your usage of their prophecy to begin with. So if Messiah ben David is a false usage, you can't use Messiah ben Joseph to prove you, dummy. You just undercut yourself.
Yes, I can. Because
that's a double standard. You just refuted yourself.
Jay, we know better.
We know better. You literally just said that because you said that the Jews were wrong about Messiah ben David, and they misinterpreted. Shut up! Shut up! You just... All right, this is too stupid. He literally just said the Jews are not trustworthy because their interpretation of Messiah ben David is wrong. Oh, but I'm going to use Messiah ben Joseph out of context because that one's right, but it's not what they thought. This is so crazy. This is the exact same thing as the Mohammedans saying that the Old Testament is predicting Muhammad. But wait a minute, that's all corrupted. No, but the Muhammad tells me that it was predicting Muhammad.
Not only that, remember I told you that Sedevacanta priest where he was like, "Have you read the book of Maccabees? It prophesies my coming."
But we know now. We know more now.
We now know.
We now know that Jewish prophecies are all wrong, and Talmudic prophecies are wrong, except for when we can take them out of context and apply them to Joseph Smith, who happens to have the same name as Messiah ben Yosef, the Jewish altar Messiah from the Talmud. Look at the mind pretzels of this idiotic cult.
We need to come up with another fallacy name that, well, it's right when it supports my position and wrong when it doesn't.
Well, that's just a double standard.
Yeah, the double standard fallacy.
Yeah. So, when the Jews mentioned, by the way, did you notice he did word concept fallacy several times? The Trinity is wrong because the word homoousios was used once by a Gnostic, and an anti-Trinitarian. Yeah, well, guess what? The word logos was used by Marcus Aurelius. So what? Does that mean that every usage of the word logos necessarily is the Stoic philosophy? But this is how, like, religions, like cults like this thrive on the fraudulent deception of terms like Joseph. Well, that's got to be talking about Joseph Smith, because even though the Jews don't believe that it's a Gentile man or the Mormon.
As I always said in the chat, I thought it was a prophecy about Trader Joe's.
Yeah, why could we not start bringing in other Josephs here? Who's some other Josephs that we know?
Stalin, Joseph Stalin.
Messiah ben Joseph Stalin. And look, how can you say that it's wrong because the Jews got other things wrong? So I can take that to be Stalin. Like his logic was that because the Jews don't accept Messiah ben David as a son of David or Jesus.
And when you get in trouble, to use the words, well, it's consistent. You see, it's a consistent circle. Huh?
Well, we have a historical witness to it. Like what? Well, I'm of the tribes of Ephraim. How are you the tribe of Ephraim? This is like Black Hebrew Israelite level stuff. Mad social scientist. Is it somebody said in the chat, Father Deacon? It's predicting Joseph Rogan, the restorer of podcasting.
I was just gonna put Joe Dirt.
No, it's Joseph Rogan.
Joseph Rogan.
Are you there?
Check. Me?
Yeah.
Good day, Jay. How are you doing? I want to take a hard turn into geopolitics and intelligence. And but before I say my piece, I was curious, what do you believe is the origin of the left in the U.S., the way that the movement exists now, the way that it has grown over the past X? Do you think that's an organic thing? Do you think that's a deliberately organized top-down effort? What are your thoughts on that before I get into my spiel?
I believe that the left, according to Dr. Carroll Quigley, through all of his admissions, was always in the U.S., at least in the last century, funded, aided, and promoted by the wealthy families and foundations and think tanks in America. And the Reese Committee hearings also back that up.
Yeah, that's definitely a huge shot in the arm, so to speak. Have you ever heard of the World Social Forums?
I don't think so.
So the World Social Forums have been going on since 2001. They continue to have them, a series of week-long global communist training, networking, and organizing conventions that were sponsored and are sponsored by enemy foreign states like Venezuela, Cuba.
Okay, here we go. This is the guy here. This is all he does is talk about this stuff. Moving on. Cool video. Yes, this guy says Castro socialism is running everything. So go ahead. Cool video. I mean, the people running everything can't even update their website, so. Go ahead.
Oh, I don't even see who you're looking at.
What do you mean?
Do you have somebody in as another person coming as a speaker? It just shows listeners on mine.
He dropped off. K? Okay. Unmute. Kay, unmute. Kay, do you want to speak? Roman Catholic Kay, do you want to talk? Oh my gosh. Lemon. Messiah Ben Rogan.
Hey, how's it going?
What's up, dude?
So I'm an ex-Mormon.
I'm aware. I remember.
Yeah. So the guy who was on earlier, he has no idea what he's talking about when it comes to Messiah Ben Joseph. A lot of ex-Mormons have already made videos on YouTube debunking. It's like the Mormon theory that started in the 90s. But the funniest part is one of the most prominent parts of the prophecy is that Messiah Ben Joseph is supposed to become before Messiah Ben David. That's the
well, there we go.
problem. Yeah.
I'm trying to find the Jewish Encyclopedia entry on that.
Yeah. A lot of Mormons just like make things up about that prophecy and post it on social media, and then the audience just eats it up and regurgitates it. But I posted a couple things in the chat for people to see, like when it comes to Mormonism. Like a lot of the times Mormons will try to use the idea like, oh, you guys had so many schisms, that proves the great apostasy. I posted a chart for people to save in the chat showing all the schisms that happened within Mormonism.
Oh, wow. Well, by the way, the first thing that came up is, according to the Talmudic tradition, Messiah ben Joseph will appear prior to the coming of the Messiah ben David.
Yeah, exactly.
He will gather the children of Israel around him, march to Jerusalem, and overcome hostile powers and reestablish the temple. Oh, but that was going to happen in what, Nauvoo, Illinois, where they're going to say, is that where? So that's where this is.
Supposed to, well, in Missouri now.
I'm sorry, I'm not Missouri.
Yeah. But it's pretty ridiculous. But you guys were talking about the Book of Abraham earlier in the Egyptian hieroglyphics. I posted my favorite part that Joseph Smith, quote unquote, translated. Where he shows that one of the depictions is supposed to be the Father, God the Father, but Egyptologists have translated it, and it's actually the Egyptian god Min of fertility. And what people thought was his hand extending to quote unquote receive the priesthood.
It's his dingling.
Actually an erected penis.
It's his dingling. Yep.
Yeah. And then the only other thing I wanted to mention, because I was actually on Father Ananias's live a couple days ago asking about tritheism. I just wanted to point out, just for everyone to know whenever they are debating Mormons, that they do not believe that Jesus is actually created. They have almost like a pantheistic view of the universe and the Godhead. And so they believe that the intelligence, substance, and spirit of everybody is eternal along with the universe. And so technically speaking, that would make Jesus and all of us eternal as well and uncreated.
No, that guy just said that. That guy just said that.
Yeah, I know, but like a lot of Mormons don't even know their own cosmology.
Oh, okay.
They're pretty. They know a lot of surface level things. Just the basis of their apologetics boils down to essentially, well, I had a spiritual experience with the Book of Mormon, therefore everything else is true. And they don't need to really dig into anything else. So.
Yeah. And by the way, this is Jewish Encyclopedia, Messiah ben Joseph. The tradition from the Talmud is that he comes before Messiah ben David, right? And gathers the children of Israel, marches to Jerusalem.
Yeah, exactly. So either they'd have to just reject that theory that they have with Joseph Smith, or start coming up with some other theories about how Jesus Christ is going to come later the first time, and that didn't happen.
Yeah, right.
When it actually happened. Yeah, so it's pretty ridiculous. But yeah, basically Mormon apologetic, like you've been exposing them just right now in the chat. It's extremely circular, and it just boils down to their subjective experience with the Book of Mormon.
Yeah, so he's a prophet, and I know this because I felt good reading it.
Yeah, exactly.
But
yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, thank you, Lemon. I appreciate that. And that's also why it's very important, as Father Deacon often points out, and I point out, this is why logic and critical thinking matters. Because when a Mormon says, deep down I know Mormonism's true because I feel it in the burning in my bosom, that is not a good reason for belief. That is a failed attempt at justification. So you see, this is why justification matters. in epistemology, because we need to have good reasons for our beliefs, not just any old reasons like burning in my bosom, because that could be heartburn. Maybe you had
heartburn is not a good justification.
Yeah, I mean that was Bonson's old joke. Like, if your justification for your belief in your religion is burning in the bosom, then maybe that was the pizza you had last night. How do you know that's from God or the Holy Spirit? Dave, what's up?
Hello.
Yeah.
Hey, I just had a quick question about the Athanasian Creed in this particular section where it supposedly teaches the.
Are you there? Can't hear you. Athanasian Creed, by the way, is a later Western creed. It's not Athanasius. It's something that emerged in the Latin West. You dropped off. I don't know what happened to you. Jimmy, what's up?
What's happening? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, what's happening? Hey, Father Ananias, Jay. Question. So, one thing I've been thinking about that I'm curious to get you guys' opinion on is the thought of, modern society. We talk about race a lot, like white race, black race, Asian race, etc.
I'm on YouTube. That's not the topics tonight.
Okay, for sure.
But the topics are listed, guys. If you're calling in, it's not like non-YouTube friendly topics. It's not catechumen questions. We're talking Mormonism, Protestantism, Roman Catholicism, geopolitics and intelligence agencies, Black Hebrew Israelites, Gnosticism, cult, sex, all that stuff. Cole.
Hey, have you heard of the Mormons' belief on who Bigfoot is?
Who's that?
They believe that it's Cain, from Cain and Abel.
Are you joking or being serious?
I am dead serious. If you look it up, it's in a book called The Miracle of Forgiveness by a past prophet named Spencer W. Kimball.
I mean, this is awesome. This is like the people that live on the sun by the Brigham Young quote.
Yeah.
Okay, let me find that. You said prophet who?
Spencer W. Kimball, Kimball.
Okay.
So it's in the book called The Miracle of Forgiveness, and it was published in 69. And so the story goes is that there's an early church leader, they say apostle, but I hate calling them apostles, but his name was David Patton, and he had an encounter in 1835, he says, that he was riding on his mule and noticed a strange person walking next to him. He said his head was about even with his shoulders when he was on his horse or mule or whatever. And he had no clothing, was covered in hair, and his skin was very dark. And then he was just talking to him like it was just no big deal. Told him he had no home, he was a wanderer, and that his whole goal was to destroy the souls of men. And so that book came out in 69, and it brought that quote back, or that story, saying that the prophets believed that that was his interaction with Cain, and that he's never going to die, and that he's just torturing people throughout the world, but whatever. And so he... I'm
going to have to get this book, man. That's funny. I appreciate that. Yeah. We'll have to get this book.
Yeah,
I'll have to find the actual... I'd love to see the actual... I wonder... let's see if maybe it's on page 127. Let's see if we can find it on 127. PDF or like Google Books or something. Let's see. Thank you guys for the super chats. We'll read some of those here in a second. No image, no preview. Oh man, let's try a PDF over here. Maybe it's on archive or something. Oh, I forgot to. We need to kind of walk through a couple of the verses as Father Deacon and I have done many times. Oh, here we go. Miracle of Forgiveness. So let's see, page 127. It's very easy to refute both Mormonism and Islam when we understand the finality of divine revelation, in the sense of public divine revelation. Once the last apostle died, there's no more prophets. There's no more revelation. And Mormonism, like charismaticism or Seventh-day Adventism with Ellen White, those thrive on the notion that there's ongoing new public revelations, you see. And so this is why, from the outset, it's a con. Because first of all, we know Deuteronomy 13, you can't have new doctrines or new theology that's not consistent with the prior revelation. So the Torah has to be consistent with what the new revelation posits as it comes. So when the prophets come, Isaiah, David, they have to be teaching what's consistent with the Torah. Likewise, when Jesus comes and when the apostles teach the New Testament, it also has to be consistent with the Torah and the prophets, you see. You can never have something new that contradicts the old or supersedes it. That right away cuts out a ton of the Mormon argumentation that we've heard tonight. So one of these passages that we want to look at is Zechariah 13, and this is a messianic prediction of the messianic era. And it talks about that in this day when the Messiah is around and when righteousness is beginning to sprout in the world, there will no longer be prophets. In that day it will come to pass, I will cut off the name of the idols out of the land, and they will no longer be remembered. And the unclean spirit shall pass out of that land. And it shall come to pass that if anyone prophesies, his mother or father that begot him shall say, you will not live, for ye have spoken lies in the name of the Lord. In that day, every prophet will be ashamed when they prophesy. And they will say, I am not a prophet. I am a husbandman, a tender of the vineyard. And this is messianic because we know it's messianic because of what does verse 7 say? He was wounded in the house of his friends, verse 6. And verse 7, woe to the shepherd, and the shepherd will be smitten, and the sheep scattered. That is a prophecy of Christ's crucifixion and the apostles being scattered when he dies. Those are messianic prophecies. Therefore, when the Messiah comes, one of the things that he institutes is the finality to divine revelation. Let's look at another passage, Daniel 9. And this also disproves dispensationalism, as we pointed out in the previous week's focus on dispensational Zionism. In the 70 weeks prophecy, one of the things that we're told comes about at the first advent is the sealing up of the vision and prophecy and the anointing of the Messiah. Messiah the Prince, verse 25. This is when is this taking place? Well, guess what? It actually tells you when the Messiah is cut off. That's the death of Christ. Okay, first advent. What is one of the characteristics of the first advent? The sealing up of vision and prophecy. In other words, when the Messiah comes, this will be the era in which vision and prophecy is complete. Once John the Apostle died, there's no more oral word of God, no more written word of God. He's the last apostle to die. It's done. That's why when we come over here to Jude, Jude can say in Jude 3, give me the freaking chapter. Yeah. Beloved, when I gave all diligence to write unto you of the common salvation, it was needful for me to write unto you to exhort you that you should earnestly contend, that's apologetics, for the faith once delivered unto the saints. That means there's no new deliveries. There's no new revelations. Okay?
Once, twice, 3 times, 5 times.
Exactly.
Right.
And as Father Deacon points out, Galatians 1, Paul says in the famous verse that everybody's aware of, do not go after another gospel. even if we are an angel from heaven, preach another gospel. Obviously, that's 100% applicable to the cult of Joseph Smith, which was supposedly given to him as new revelations from an angel, Moroni. But Paul says, do not go after any other gospel other than what was delivered to you via Pauline theology and teaching. Guess what? That means there has to be a finality to this. Otherwise, you could not judge what comes in the future. Father Deacon, would you want to comment on that at all?
Sorry, repeat that, please.
Well, you were the one that made this point about Galatians 1, even when Paul says you judge any future claim from an angel or from any entity by what Paul handed down. That means there's a finality to it. Otherwise, you couldn't.
So, yeah, it's an epistemic point of having the whole deposit so that things don't need to be filled in. Because if the picture is not filled in, then any heretic can come later and be like, and put a piece in, right? I'm always thinking kind of like a jigsaw puzzle or something like that. I think that's what St. Irenaeus uses, the metaphor or analogy of a mosaic or something like that. But if you don't have the complete picture as a whole, then there's no way that you have a standard to say any of it's true. So we need that actually completed, delivered as a whole, because that's precisely what preserves and gives us justification for any of these. That's why you can see this guy basically just says, well, I'll just put my own thing in there and then I'll just circle back on it, and that's the justification. And the eyewitnesses are written in the thing that I added in there from Joseph Smith. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's no way to, it doesn't give you any objective or public epistemic means or way of determining what's authentic, what's true, what's apostolic. So what they end up doing, and every heretic does, is, well, obviously, I just pick the stuff that supports my position and reject the rest of it. So I start with my own made-up position, and then I'll just exclude anything that negates that or rejects that, and I'll use and reconstruct an image about how that supports mine. So you can do that if there's no whole, if there's no kataholos, if there's no apostolic deposit of faith. So that's why I always hammer home with that. I'm like, if you don't have that, and we do have it, then you don't know anything. So it is a sort of kind of transcendental argument in the sense of the impossibility of the contrary. It's either orthodoxy, the kataholos, once delivered, or it's nothing. You don't have any justification whatsoever for anything you say. Yeah, that's always my argument.
Okay, and to add to that, you'll notice here at the end of the book of Revelation, John says, if anyone hears the words of the prophecy of this book and adds unto these things, God will add unto him to the plagues. And if you take away, likewise, the name is removed from the book of life. Now, this is not talking about a completed Protestant canon of 66 books, as many Protestants like to assume. But the principle still applies because providentially John's book was the last of the books to be included in the canon. And it is the final revelation and the final writing of the final apostle, St. John the theologian. So to add anything to this final revelation does violate this principle of adding to the finality, right? So even though John didn't necessarily know, or anyone else, that this was the final book of the canon of scriptures, it eventually providentially made its way into the canon of scriptures and was the final text. And so to add anything subsequently to this revelation in some sort of, Joseph Smith cult type of way would still be violating the principle of these verses, although not necessarily a proof for sola scriptura or for a Protestant canon. So I want to be very clear that I'm not conceding to Protestants that this proves their view of the 66 books, because this doesn't tell you which books go into the canon. But it does lay down a principle that here, clearly there's some finality to this revelation. Otherwise, if there's new revelations after John, then it would be contradicting the warning that you can't add to this, to the prophetic revelations. So there's no new prophetic revelations after John. Now, one last point. The church has already, by the way, dealt with this heresy. It's called the heresy of Montanism. And
not Montanism.
Not Montana. Not where he is. Just briefly here. And this shouldn't be too controversial, so I'm not a huge fan of Wikipedia, but this shouldn't really be that big of a... This should be easy to find. A Montanism is known by its adherents as the New Revelation, so it conveniently identified itself for you. It is an early Christian movement of the late 2nd century, mid to late, referred to its founder, Montanus. Montanism held views about basic Christian theology similar to the wider Christian church. However, it was labeled a heresy for its belief in new prophetic figures. So guess what? Any heresy or cult that comes along and says there's new revelations is already canceled out by everything we've been talking about for the last 10 minutes and by the judgment of the church early on rejecting Montanism. The prophetic movement called for a reliance on the spontaneous. This is like charismatics in the 2nd century. Okay. So you get the idea. And by the way, to hammer it home, this is the heresy that Tertullian fell into. Because Tertullian was a holy roller, he thought that the visible institutional church, which already existed, okay, so notice Tertullian leaving the institutional Catholic Church proves that in the 2nd century there was already an institutional Catholic Church, or else Tertullian could not leave it and criticize it as being corrupt. And thus Tertullian fell into the heresy of Montanism. William? I see. Yeah, what's up? I see you laughing. What's up?
I'm not laughing, Jay. I think it might have been the wrong emoji.
Oh, that's fine.
I just like it. I just want to thank you very much for dealing with Robert.
Who?
Robert.
Who's Robert?
Oh, he's the LDS lunatic that called in.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah, his full name is Robert Gurr. He's one of the most prominent LDS apologists on the interweb.
Oh, really? His name is what? Robert what?
Robert Gurr.
Gurr, like Gurr. What do you mean?
Literally G-U-R.
Oh, G-U-R-R. Okay. By the way, to speak to that guy, by the way, reminder, so when the Muslims were doing this exact same thing 1 year ago, Jake was doing it, Daniel Hakikachu was doing it, doing the exact same line of argumentation that this Muslim dude, or this Mormon dude, Gurr, was doing. Inspiring Philosophy and I did a almost an hour and a half talk here, just going through pre-Nicene proofs for the Trinity. And so this is very important for this point here. Go ahead.
Yeah, and then he you know how there's currently two schools of Mormons. One, you have the original ones that still believes in like polygamy and crazy stuff. And then there's like the newer kids that basically don't know anything. They think it's just like they believe in a completely different version of Mormonism that Joseph Smith taught. And what Robert believes in, he's somewhere in between, right? So a lot of the lunatic shit he said about the Messiah ben Joseph, it was not even taught by the original Mormons.
Oh, interesting.
That's just him, and he's famous for doing like the Church Father, Origin, and then it happens to be the only ones he focuses on are Origin, Tertullian, and Justin Martyr. He doesn't want to go to anything else.
Okay.
The guys,
I love that. I just saw something on Twitter today where I can't remember if it was a papist or a Protestant. They're arguing something about orthodoxy, and they quote Origin and Tertullian. I'm like, that's your that's your argument against is two heretics.
Yeah, he still believes that there are multiple wives in heaven too. So, like, if you divorce a woman, that woman is still eternally bounded to you. You still have her in heaven. Like, you can do, like, the Muslim stuff. So, yeah, that's, like, the old school Mormon type of stuff. And I just want to thank you so much, Jay, because a lot of people were watching, and then he just officially ended his career.
Oh, good. I had no idea who I was talking to, so that's good. I'm trying to find... does he have a channel? Where I can't find. I found one debate with this Protestant guy that he did, but I can't find him on a.
Yeah, I debated him many times, and I think some of it's on my channel. But yeah, but the Protestant guy is even worse than him.
Oh no.
That guy says he thinks Salome is the daughter of Mary.
Okay. Okay, yeah, but does Robert Gurr have a channel? Do you know what it is?
I will DM it to you, but it's crazy. But he's famous in the Mormon community for doing that stuff. That's why, like, we saw you do that, and my boy Chad and I, we just spammed him, telling him to come on.
Oh, good. Well, yeah. We'll notice once again, Messiah ben Joseph in he said go to the Jewish Encyclopedia. Here we are, and it says that this is the Jewish Talmudic tradition of the Messiah who will appear prior to Messiah ben David. Uh-oh.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate you getting that guy on here.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I thought, let me bring you back. I thought you were done here. Finish what you were going to say. Go ahead. Come back, dude. I'm sorry. Come back. Where'd you go, dude? William Dyer, come back, man. Here we go. William, come back. What were you going to say?
Yeah, Jay, I just want to ask, is the debate with William Albrecht on Sam's channel still happening, or are they, like, chickened out again?
Nobody chickened out. So what I talked to Sam yesterday, and I proposed to him that why don't we do a 1 versus 1 presentation? So either I do a presentation about why Rome is not right and Orthodoxy is right, and then Albrecht can do a separate presentation addressing mine arguments or doing his own. So, and Shamoon sounded like he was open to that, and I'm guessing he's going to ask Albrecht. But I'll be honest with you, I don't think I can. I probably wouldn't be able to keep my patience with that dude. Nothing to do with his arguments. It would just. I mean, Joshua Z, what's up? That would be the best way to go about this. Joshua Z, what's up, dude?